All right, so today we got a 2009 Silverado 2500. We're going to be doing a little rot repair. Pretty common. What we see is the cross member that goes above the fuel tank, and it has a shock mount on one side, tends to rot out. It's such a common thing that they actually make kits online to replace the whole thing, and that's what we're going to do today. Try to make a pretty short, simple video. This is the kit that we have. So it goes right here. We can see this is the shock mount on one side. This is the side that goes up over the fuel tank. This bracket comes welded on already. It has some other brackets. This one will slide in here. And then once you get it all placed into the frame, it all gets welded in. These are the outside pieces and should be pretty easy. So with the fuel tank out of the way, you can really see the extent of the rot that we have, especially on this particular vehicle. This is basically not attached anymore. So what we're gonna do here, we're gonna use torches. We're gonna cut this out. It seems like everything kind of gets caught above the fuel tank, and that's what's really causing this to rot out. So what I just did here is I used my cutoff wheel. I just made some center line cuts that line up with the frame here, and then also here to here and here. And I went all the way back here because the piece they give that you're gonna weld in actually goes this way. And if you notice, it doesn't really fit in there, but I feel like once we cut this out and get it out and I lay this flat, we're gonna bury this into this corner as far as we can. And this actually has some notches on it already for center. So I'll do my best to get that as close to center to that notch that I made. Frankly, if this whole cross member is back a fraction of an inch, it's not gonna really affect anything. So that's the first step on both sides. Mark your center lines so that you can kind of gauge where everything goes once you start welding it back in. One thing to keep in mind, you're gonna wanna make sure you disconnect all your wiring harnesses. Your ABS harness comes up the passenger side, and over here on the driver's side, you've got your evap valve and some other things. Brake line, unclip it from this hole, pull it out. I shoved a pry bar up there to kind of pry it up nice and high because I am going to use the torches and try to cut this thing out this way. And then we'll grind this all down and prep it for welding in the new piece. Got a little slag holding this one on still. All right. So you can see just how bad this was. Everything's pretty rotted, but cutting those out actually seemed to work pretty good. Kind of fell out after that. So we're just going to clean up all this slag, make sure this is all nice and flat, and then we can start kind of positioning everything back in and seeing how it goes from there. All right, so as you can see, we prepped the surfaces. We did the best we could here. There's obviously a little more rot going on in this particular spot of the frame. One thing to keep in mind when you're doing this portion, again, we got the brake lines, the wiring harnesses. Make sure you keep those all out of the way when you're grinding this clean, also when we're welding as well. Look at that. This side came out much better. As you can see, it's not nearly as rotted, just some pitting and surface rust. And as far as the outsides, here's the outsides. They came out really nice. Dry fit it first, and if everything looks good, we'll start clamping it into place and tacking it into place. All right, so we got this dry fitted in here. One thing to keep in mind is prep all your surfaces that you're gonna weld first. The other thing to keep in mind is that plate needs to be installed on the passenger side before you try to feed this in there, because this is one of the loose ones. So you feed this side in first, you feed it all the way in, and then once this side's all the way in, you gotta slide this side up and through the holes that were cut. I did have a lot of trouble. You can see this has got a little bend to it because I had to force it past If you have a lot of trouble, you can probably afford to cut just a little bit off of the end of the tube on each side. Well, you don't actually need to do each side, you only need to do this side. Just to give you a little more clearance. It is really tight getting it in there. I don't know if it's just this particular one or if they're all like that, but that was tight. But we're gonna get this into place. You can see I've got my marks, my center marks. So once we kind of get it where we want it and we're happy with it, we'll tack it and go from there. You can see here, this plate doesn't fit perfectly straight because it goes up against the welds for the body mount, which the welds in the body mount weren't straight. They kind of came out and it forces this to come out. So I kind of went at a little angle, but you can see there's my center mark up on the top here. And here's my center mark down the bottom. And they give you nice little center marks if you could make this straight. Center mark here, but you can't make it straight. So I'm just gonna eyeball it from this center mark to the center of my tube. And then I have this center mark to the center of the tube to kind of get it in place. I'm gonna tack these outboards in place first, and then I'll worry about straightening this out, you know, the cross member itself, straightening it out and welding that in place. All right, so everything's tacked in for now. So we just got some tacks on this one, centering this as best as we can. Like I mentioned before, it's not the end of the world if this thing doesn't go exactly in the spot that it was in. So this is tacked in for now. Again, this has got some serious rot going on here, but we're gonna weld that in best we can. So this is all stable now. Just gotta make sure that your gas tank mounting spots are facing straight down. Shock mount is in the correct position. So from here, everything looks good. And now we just gotta weld everything. So as much as we can, weld all the way around the brackets, and this should be ready for some paint. All right, so we finished up our final welds. So disclaimer, I am not a welder, but I have a welder. So there's a difference. I did my best. You can see I even filled in this little patch here that was rotted away. We had a little piece of scrap metal, welded that in there. So this is welded as best as I could with as rusty as this side was. The other side, a little better, definitely ugly, but it was hard to reaching around this exhaust pipe and everything. The outside pieces came out not too bad because everything was a little cleaner, a little more solid. There's our final side, and then we just gotta put our park and brake bracket back on because we took that off. We're gonna paint this up, get the gas tank back in, and it'll be done. Here's the final outcome here. We got a little coat of paint on there, some Rust-Oleum. This thing looks as good as new. Definitely came out pretty nice. All we gotta do now is just get the gas tank back in, the shock, and get the thing back on the ground. Certainly something that wasn't as bad to do as I thought it would be. So, you know, if this is something that you guys are looking to do, it certainly was not terrible to do. You just need a welder, maybe some torches or some other way to cut the things out. And it's ready to go. So let's just get this gas tank back in. All right, so we are all back in. Gas tank's in, shocks are in. The only thing I will mention on this, all the little holes in the factory one where the harnesses clip into, they don't have those. So we just ended up doing zip ties, just kind of zip tied everything in place. So, but other than that, it was a pretty nice fit. Everything worked out pretty well. Looks good. Looks pretty factory, I guess. And it's definitely gonna be a lot safer. So I hope you enjoyed watching this, and I hope it helped you be able to do this for yourself. Thanks for watching.